Canadian rye whiskey. It is a Hiram Walker distillery product. And as far as I know, um, those guys are 46% owned by Pinot Ricard. But Pinot Ricard owns 51% of all the voting shares. So Pinot Ricard doesn't own the whole company. They don't even own 50% of the company. They only own 46, but they own 51% of the voting shares, so they still have control of the company, I guess. So it's kind of a Pinot Ricard company, but um, not quite. It sort of is. This is 48% ABV or 96 proof. Um, it is copper pot still, so it's not column still. Non-chill filter, natural color. So this is real Canadian rye whiskey color. Can you believe it? Wild. And it is aged 7 years in a number 2 char virgin oak barrel, and then finished in a number 4 char barrel. And the rumor is that this is like your regular lot 40 for 7 years. And then they take the barrels that had the virgin oak barrels, number 2 char, that had lot 40 in them, and rechar them to number 4 and then finish the whiskey in it for some amount of time. It does say on here, like, aged twice in new oak barrels for depth of flavor, but the rumor around the mill is that it's not like new oak barrel char 2, then new oak barrel char 4. It's like new oak barrel char 2, and then that barrel charred to char 4, and then finished. But I don't know 100%. But that 7-year number 2 char virgin oak is like standard lot 40. And it's kind of like what we were talking about. I think like lower char barrels, like maybe imparting more color and stuff like that. Because this is like pretty damn dark, really. For Canadian whiskey, it's pretty damn dark. Um, that's just spicy. So we'll give that a minute to sort itself out while mom's making a coffee or whatever she's doing. But yeah, every time we've had this before, when we fresh cracked it, and I think every time since, the whole thing is just a spice bomb. It's spicy on the nose, it's spicy on the palate, and spicy on the finish, and it doesn't have a lot of other redeeming qualities. So we'll see if that's changed with like a month or 2 of air, I think, since we last had it. Then again, we'll do 25 points on aroma, 25 points on palate, 25 points on finish, 10 points on texture, and 15 points on experience. And I'm going to let you know right now that if the experience is liquid spice, it's going to be a low score. It's going to be quite a low score. The all spice whiskey is not a great experience. My subjective opinion. Compare it to Fireball. We don't actually have any Fireball. I know you have a bottle somewhere. I don't actually. I've never had Fireball either. Never ever. Although I seen this thing, The closest I've been to trying a Fireball, um, where is it gone? Is like, you're missing out on a true degen experience. Yeah, I think I did that quite intentionally. Um, like, whatever this thing is. Oh, actually, now that I'm looking at it, this is 33% alcohol, so I'm instantly not interested. I thought this was like more than that. I thought this was like closer to whiskey. Is Fireball whiskey? Well, this says it is 33% alcohol. So by definition, it cannot be whiskey. But what it probably is whiskey that was flavored with cinnamon. Is it good? I do not know, but it's not something I feel like is in my general wheelhouse. Yeah, but most people who are like partying with Jaeger and Fireball, I don't think they're like sipping Jägermeister like I did. I used to frequent a bar, and after you paid your tab, they would give you a free shot of Fireball for the road. Huh, that's something. But yeah, I missed this stage of degeneracy where you ingested Fireball and got hammered. That I never had that part. But I'm actually kind of disappointed now because I thought this was like a higher end Fireball that was like maybe actually whiskey. But it's actually not. It's actually just it's trying to pretend to be whiskey, like closer to something sophisticated. This thing. Like, and they got it in a Glen and stuff. Is it really 33% alcohol? That's disappointing. It's just poison. Fireball, but make it fancy. Like, this is the closest I ever got to like trying something like that because it kind of seemed like it might be something more. Um, what? Gentrify it? It's like thick cough syrup. I'm having a hard time determining if that AMBL thing that says it's 33% alcohol is actually true. It's like fucking. Nah, where the fuck's the product information? Yeah, it is 33% ABV. Yeah, it's still low proof. Yeah, see, this is what they have to write. It says whiskey with natural flavors. So it's flavored whiskey. It's not whiskey. It's flavored whiskey. It's liqueur. Cinnamon whiskey rested with charred oak for a fiery smoothness. What? What was it rested with before? What is Fireball? Dragon's Reserve overall sip contains that base cinnamon flavor, but it adds slightly more depth to it. Okay. Go dissolve some cinnamon pears in Everclear. that would be a maybe actually more interesting than this because at least it wouldn't be 33% alcohol. This thing said something about it's bourbon barrel aged. Aged for months in premium bourbon barrels. Okay, so this isn't even like it's it's ex bourbon. It's ex bourbon liqueur. Okay. Refined oaky finish for a taste you didn't know you needed. Yeah, I don't think there's anything refined about it, but if this is what you like go for it. But I'm just trying to find like the redeeming characteristic for why this is not just a liquor. And I think it's just a liquor. Oh yeah, no, lots of people like Fireball. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's very popular for a reason. I just was kind of hoping that this thing was um, more than that. But it seems like it's not. I was kind of hoping it might actually be whiskey. Womp womp. Okay. We've made fun of Fireball enough. Nothing wrong with Fireball if you like it. Oof. That's a rough comment. Okay. So we've sat around for a minute on this. So, and again, why we're talking about Fireball is because, again, this thing, last time that I remember giving notes about it, then among those notes are liquid cinnamon, um, just all baking spices, nothing else, spice bomb, this kind of idea. You know, the nose isn't the worst. People like what they like, and that's fine. Absolutely, this is what I said the other day too. Is if you want to come in here and say you love Johnny Walker Red and you put ice in it, fucking banger, dude. You do it. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing. No elitism. You know, like that's the reason why Johnny Walker is the most popular Scotch brand in the world, right? People like that shit. You know, if you enjoy shooting Fireball, that's not for me, but you enjoy it. So long as you're drinking responsibly, you enjoy that. Absolutely. We might have a hard time talking about the notes in Fireball, but you know, that might not be the experience that I'm having, but if that's what you like, nothing wrong with that whatsoever. So, this is still very spicy, but there's actually other things going on in here right now, which I find wild. Maybe the oxygen did do something. I can't remember when this bottle got opened. Uh, 5 or 6 months ago. Um, but I mean, okay. The nose is showing promise. Okay. Odd to sell it as a refined experience. Yeah, I think it's like one of those things where it's like, well, people love Fireball, and some people think Fireball is like actually whiskey. I think because there's some amount of I hate to say it being true, but there's some amount of like in alcohol, people taking advantage of misinformation, like brands taking advantage of misinformation. That's like it. You could call it marketing, but to me, it's like not marketing. It's like making something seem like something that it's not. So an example would be um, we talked about before about the number on the Florida Cana rum. So Florida Cana comes in Florida Cana 5, 7, 12, 15. It was like a 23, a 25, I don't know, whatever, 25, a 30, and it says Florida Cana 12. And you would assume that means 12 years old. And it's not. And if you're very astute, um, you'll find that it doesn't say it's aged 12 years anywhere on the bottle because they can't write that, but it really looks like it. And to me, that's like, hey, this isn't marketing, this is misleading, right? Um, so, um, so there's nothing wrong with like marketing something up, but my point is just that I think a lot of people think Fireball is actually whiskey, and it is actually whiskey flavored whiskey. Um, so some to some extent, I think people like marketers take advantage of the idea that like, hey, you're going to have a higher level whiskey here. This is whiskey, and you're going to get a special whiskey, and it's really not quite whiskey. It's flavored whiskey. It's not even. You got to be 40% ABV to even get to whiskey, right? So, um, I think people think Fireball is whiskey and might think that if you get a nicer one, it's similar to getting like a nicer whiskey. What's the other one that was? We had a discussion on Discord about the Irish whiskey Proper 12, Conor McGregor's Irish whiskey, the Proper 12, and they released a special limited release of Proper 12 that has a 13-year age statement. It's a weird number. I was like, well, if you're going to release an age-stated limited release Proper 12, why wouldn't you release a 12-year-old Proper 12? Well, that would just make sense, right? A 12-year-old Proper 12. It would line right up instead of like a 13-year-old Proper 12. And then someone made the comment that I, that would dispel the idea that Proper 12 is not 12 years old, or the thought that Proper 12 is 12 years old. I'm like, do people think Proper 12 is a 12-year-old whiskey? I guess. Maybe they do. Maybe that's why you wouldn't release a 12-year-old limited release Proper 12, because then people would realize that the regular Proper 12 is not 12 years old. It's like 4 years old or something. So I was like, well, that's kind of taking advantage, kind of misleading, not quite marketing. I don't know. It's a wishy-washy morality, I think. Um, and the one that I think of is like, I think there's little tiny fireballs that you can get that like are not even, it's not even like flavored whiskey. It's like flavored grain spirit or something like that. But it looks like the exact same bottle, but it just doesn't say whiskey on it. And it's really misleading. Perception is reality, somewhat. Um, that is somewhat true. It is fact that they've done studies, and it is fact that, um, like, for example, if you are told that a wine is really expensive, um, you will enjoy it more. And that's not even like, uh, you know, like nonsense. It's like you actually have your pleasure centers are actually more activated because you think it's expensive, even though it's like not or whatever. It is a verifiable fact that it is how it works. So some amount of like the enjoyment factor you get out of old expensive whiskeys is the fact that you know you're drinking an old expensive whiskey. And maybe if you blind sampled that whiskey, it wouldn't be as good. But not like because the whiskey is not that good, but because like you weren't told it was supposed to be good, so your pleasure centers weren't activated ahead of time. Right. I thought Bullet Rye was bourbon until about 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Um, yeah, the packaging on the Bullet products is really similar too. Um, but yeah, I think that's all it is. Is like it seems odd to sell Fireball as a refined experience, but I think some people just think Fireball as think of Fireball as whiskey, like any other whiskey. And maybe they don't really get it. Maybe they don't know. Um, and that's why that works. But there's also some amount of meme. Like the only reason I even looked at it was because it seemed like it was a more refined Fireball, and like it's not out of the realm of possibility that I look at that and be like, well, I know it's not actually whiskey, but we'll try it anyway. It's something different. It works. It does work. All right, so nose on this one. Um, there is baking spices. There is cinnamon, 100%. Some nutmeg too. Um, but it's not all that. There is like um, a red fruit character in it. Kind of close to a cherry kind of nose note. And there is like um, something like something like another like sweet herbal note, if that makes any sense. I'm trying to like think about what that might be, but I'm thinking of like, what do you call it? Like old timey licorice, like all sorts. Is that what they call those things? All sorts? Yeah, all sorts. Um, like a black licorice confectionery note. Man, I'm surprised I got that actually. Not that I could smell it, but that I actually could pinpoint the word all sorts because I can't remember the last time I even interacted with that. Oh, there's kind of like a rye bread note too. So it's kind of like a rye bread note at the top. Baking spices, slight cherry, a black licorice or all sorts note. Don't hate it. Don't hate the nose, actually. Unbelievable. Um, it is very particular, though. There is a little sweet, but not a lot. You'd have to really like the rye, some of these strong rye notes. Not getting like a honey sweet or any nice like syrup sweetness, sugar sweetness, brown sugar. And it's not like any of that, right? It's all um, like herbal, like sweet licorice, um, slight cherry, uh, baking spice sort of thing. All right, we're gonna try this on the palate. Um, this is natural color. Wow, we can say that. Look how dark it is. You'll love that. Natural color. All right, lot 40. Dark oak. Cheers, friends. Okay, palette is liquid cinnamon. That hasn't changed. Um, whew. Maybe, maybe when we give it some more sips, it'll it'll reveal something else. But finish is like short plus, short. Um, palette, really spicy. Liquid cinnamon, liquid baking spices. Um, good mouthfeel actually. Mouthfeel is not the worst. Palette is so spicy. And then on the finish, it's still the same. Like still very spicy. All spices. Um, slight oak character. So it's like the nose is like drastically improved that I remember, and then the palate is like still liquid cinnamon, and the finish is like still liquid cinnamon with some oak. We'll see if that changes here, but not terribly impressed with the finish either. Um, but maybe it's like, um, maybe it's the batch that I got. I don't know. Like some people, they seem to like. I think maybe the first batch was like really good, and if you have a bottle from the first batch, it's different. But um, man, it feels like it's all spice notes, man. I was I was bolstered a little bit by the nose being so good, and after watching some other people say nice things about the palate, like root beer and stuff like that, and right now it's all spice, man. It's just, and that's what I remember about this bottle is it just being really baking spicy, all spice, liquid cinnamon, liquid nutmeg. Um, and I'm trying to be optimistic to find something better than that. But I think if you don't want a really spice forward dram, oof, it's going to be hard to peel back the layers for you. Man, the nose is improved though for sure. And it's actually a little bit refreshing because it's not quite like any other nose that I've had in recent memory. Because it is got the baking spice, it has got a little bit of that licorice sweetness. It also has a little bit of that cherry in there. Maybe some small amount vanilla in there too. I'm not getting like a strong like Considering these are virgin oak barrels, I'm not getting like any of those like bourbony brown sugar caramel things going on. Now we could still get some of those. Sweetness is kind of sort to seem to come about the longer you have something resting, but all right, let's try this palette again. There's a little bit of something else in there. The finish is still baking spice, oak. Kind of a little bit, maybe a little bit of a herbal note. But really, like, held long on the palate. There is kind of like whispers of some other things. I just think that the spicy note is so strong. It's really overwriting what else is supposed to be here. Um, like maybe some of those notes that are on the nose are in the palate. They're just I have to really dig into that liquid cinnamon to find them at the bottom. I feel like I got a little bit of it though. But the fact that I have to dig, it's like it's unbalanced. It feels unbalanced. Um, like it should be that like there's like a spiciness and maybe a little bit of that cherry and a little bit of that um, black licorice candy, um, a little bit of that vanilla, kind of all present and accessible to your palate. And it right now feels like the spicy notes are just dominating. They're just so loud, and it's overwriting the rest of it. And sometimes it's okay to have nuance, right? Like, hey, we got a couple nice notes, but then we also have these kind of whispers of other nuanced notes. But when you have like something that's like got one loud, brash, overwhelming, strong note, and then everything else is just feels like it's been overwritten, that's not great. Kind of want to have a couple things and then maybe a couple nuances. It shouldn't all just be one thing with some nuances. Kind of feels a little unbalanced. Um, there's just too much spiciness in there. Nose is the best part by far. I feel like the stuff on the nose, I kind of want to try to get on the palate. Because it's giving me that hope that that stuff's in there. Man, it's rough. More oakiness on the finish now. Like, maybe I need to be a little palate blind to the spice. I just got to acclimate to some of the spice notes. But yeah, again, it's like one of those things where it's like I feel like I shouldn't have to dig so much. I feel like I'm having to dig to find the other flavors, which is not the, you know, not the greatest. Maybe the finish is a little longer. Maybe it's like, I don't know, medium minus or something like that. Maybe a short plus is like a little not quite that short, but okay, we'll give it another try here. And I don't know, again, this class on this day, we'll give it a score. Um, it's giving me some hope for maybe, I don't know, maybe we need to get it down to like the last third, but um, man, I need this palette to open up or something. I need the spice note to go down and those other notes to go up. Because it's just, there's like whispers of other things on the palate, and it's all real spicy. Yeah, just to reiterate where we're kind of at. Nose has got cherry, cinnamon, nutmeg, vanilla, sweet, licorice, all sorts candy. Maybe a little herbal quality. Um, it's hard for me to like give a root beer note, but um, it wouldn't be like if I was told root beer, I could say yeah. I couldn't disagree with root beer, I guess. I just wish that was on the palate. All those things, I want them on the palate. I don't want um, liquid cinnamon. You know what I mean? Yeah, palate's liquid cinnamon. Trace amounts of that sweet licorice note. Trace amounts of that cherry note. Um, Finishes again, liquid baking spices, some oak bitterness, slight herbal character. Um, Maybe like medium minus length. That's kind of where we're at. So we'll start giving some numbers. And I got to do some work maybe this weekend if I can find time. Um, I'll try to like do something where like stuff's visible on the stream because I'm putting numbers on the notepad, but it helps for you guys to see something. What is Lot 40? Lot 40 is a 100% raw Canadian whiskey. So this in particular is a different core release from Lot 40. So Lot 40 typically is a 7-year-old 100% Canadian rye whiskey. that is aged in a number 2 char oak, virgin oak barrel. But this is like the dark oak version, so that's that kind of that same 7-year-old lot 40 that is then finished in a number 4 char barrel for some amount of time, some extra amount of time. So it's darker. Um, for the most part, it's very spicy, some deep kind of red fruit licorice kind of notes on the nose, but um, palate hasn't been my favorite. Finish hasn't been my favorite. Um, there's like a liquid cinnamon, very spicy note that is like really strong and is kind of dominating the palate and making it hard to get much else out of it. Um, Meltdown 47 V2. How's it going anyway? Thanks for joining us. How much Canadian whiskey? Yeah, so I am in Canada, but that being said, there isn't like a large amount of Canadian whiskey around. There's a lot of plenty of. I think we have more rye whiskey than we have blended Canadian whiskey. I don't even know, but rye is definitely a really common whiskey up here. But yeah, this is 100% rye, but of course Canadians also have mostly blended whiskeys. That's common in Canadian whiskey. But this is a rye whiskey that happens to be made in Canada, less of a Canadian whiskey. So are you a bourbon enjoyer? Are you a Scotch enjoyer? I'm a Scotch enjoyer. I enjoy Scotch. We have all kinds of stuff around here. We got bourbon, we got Scotch, I got Irish. Um, Big time bourbon guy. Ooh, a bourbon man. What did we try recently? Oh, we tried the Bullet Bourbon Batch 7 barrel strength. Was that yesterday? I lose track of days, man. I think that was yesterday. No, maybe it wasn't. No, yesterday was Lagavulin. It was the day before. That was yesterday? I thought yesterday was Lagavulin. I thought we did Lagavulin yesterday. Yeah, no, we did that on Wednesday. On Wednesday, no, on Wednesday we did on Fresh Crack Wednesday we fresh cracked um Bullet Bourbon barrel strength. But we also had Nilo sub, so we also fresh cracked that 10-year-old Bacardi 2012. Um, and then we did, yeah, and then we did Lagavulin 11 Caribbean rum cask yesterday. And well, we ended up doing a bunch of Lagavulins, but um, yeah, we do some bourbon for sure. What bourbon do we have? Oh, this is the one that we still have that I think is the only one I have that's not open. This one here. This is the Rabbit Hole 4 grain triple malt Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. 3-year-old hidden on the back. 3-year-old. Um, and again, this one is like not your typical bourbon though. I don't know if you've ever had this meltdown, but yeah, not your typical bourbon. As far as I know, when we read the notes, we read things like fresh apples and citrus and orange and honey and stuff, and that's just not typical bourbon notes. So that's why we bought it, because it was interesting. But yeah, we do some amount of bourbon. We still got to get out the bourbon infinity bottle here at some point. We still got to work on that too. Never had that one. Have you had? Which ones you had? You've had. So what else is there? There's the Derringer. So that's the PX cask finish. There's the rye, and there's another one. What's the other one? It's like Heidel or something. Um, What's the other one they have? Oh, the high rye bourbon. Yeah, so they have the 4 grain, the high rye bourbon, the Pedro Jimenez cask finish. They have the sour mash, which is a rye sour mash, and then they have like limited edition cask strength things. Derringer, yeah. So that's that. That's that. How do you find that actually? 'Cause that's one that interests me too, because I may or may not quite enjoy the Pedro Jimenez uh, barrel type. So I'd be interested to see what you think of that one, because that's one I wanted to get to, because it's finished some amount of time in Pedro Jimenez. I imagine it's got like some of that fruitiness going on, some of that jamminess, some of that raisin sort of thing you might expect, and probably also has some of those deeper bitter notes on the finish. That's like what I would expect, but interested to see what you think. Find it quite regularly around here, the Derringer. Yeah, I can get it where I am too. I just haven't bought one yet because a man only has so much money. And there's lots of spirits fighting for a man's dollar too. All right, so we'll take this nose from the top, and we'll try to give it a score here because we've had 3 sips now, and now's the time. Now's the time to make a score. Okay, we've given it its opportunity. See, liquid, baking spices, vanilla, all sorts, cherry. My favorite part about this nose is like the cherry at the back. It's way at the back, but if you stick with it and you get that cherry at the back, that's my favorite part, for sure. Um, so I feel like the nose is the best part. The rest of it's kind of like a wash, but we say at a 25. I'm gonna say, man, the notes are kind of interesting too. 19. 19 out of 25 for aroma. Not bad. Not bad. Not bad. All right, so we're going to spend some time focusing on the palate. See if we can give it a score out of 25. See if we can find a note that is not liquid cinnamon, because it's not a great note. Yeah, this palate. It's just disappointing. Yeah, palate is like liquid cinnamon, slight herbal quality, whisper of sweet licorice. I don't know, whisper of that cherry maybe. It's just all liquid spice. Um, it's not good. It's not good. It's not good, and I'm not sure I would even call it pleasant. Let's say at a 25, I'm gonna give it 10. It's not good. Okay. The worst part is it's not like it's like a different kind of bad score. It's like a lot of times I feel like my bad palate scores are like I had a hard time to taste anything, or it was watery, or it's like I was hunting around to try to find where the flavor was. And this one, it's like, man, there's flavor, but it's like not a super pleasant flavor, and it's like really loud, and it's overwriting the pleasant flavors. Like there's only one strong note, and the other notes are being just like toppled over, barreled over. You can't get them. They're at the somewhere in the back somewhere. Um, Unbalanced, really. Um, yeah, I think ten's a good number. It's a bad number, but it's a good number. It's a correct number for my personal subjective opinion of this palette. Um, so I'll spend some time and focus on the finish at a 25. Um, so far, it's been still strong liquid cinnamon, um, some um, oakiness, a little bit of herbal quality, um, medium minus in length. It's kind of a struggle because it's not a super short finish, but the quality of the notes in it is not good. So it's like somewhere between good and okay. It's not my favorite. This whiskey's still not my favorite. And I knew as soon as we randomly decided that this is the one to review that, yeah, like we said earlier, this is probably in my bottom 5 bottles that I have. It is not good. Not what I would consider good. Um, yeah, I still recommend do not buy this one. Like your standard lot 40, I think it's a better dram than this. There's hope though. Don't worry, cat and brass balls. There's hope. The fact that the nose is as pleasant as it is now, like 19 is actually not a bad nose score. Actually, pretty good. Um, Before the nose was just as bad as the rest of it, in my memory. It just smelled like straight up baking spice. So the nose has improved drastically. So our hope is like when we get this like here, maybe the last third of the bottle will have promise, but it won't make up for having to deal with this part. I don't know what the batch size is. I don't know if I can find the batch size easily, but this is 100% rye whiskey. Yeah. Can I find the batch size? Uh, Lot 40 batch size. You think we'll find? I think I'll find it. Um, it just says small batch, and that just doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. I don't know. I don't know what the batch size is. So again, when we use the word small batch, that doesn't mean anything. That can be any number of barrels. Like for example, when we talk about Elijah Craig's small batch, that's 200 barrels. That's what they would consider a small batch, 200 barrels, which is obviously vastly different than Michter's U.S. #1 bourbon, which is 20 barrels. There's a tenth of the barrels in a Michter small batch versus a Elijah Craig small batch. So the fact that they say, "Oh, this is a small batch," that doesn't mean anything. That could mean 20 barrels, and that could mean 400 barrels. I don't know. So I don't know how many barrels are blended to make this. I couldn't tell you. But it is 100% rye whiskey. And as far as I know, all the barrels involved are roughly 7 years. Number two char, virgin oak, and then finished, and number four char oak. That's all we know for sure. Everything in here has got that profile, but we don't know like how big the batch size is, how many barrels we're dealing with exactly. 200 hogshead barrels. Oh, that's even bigger. Oh yeah, yeah. We could say it's small batch, 200 barrels, but it's 200 sherry butts. It's 200 sherry butts. How big is an octave? What's the size of an octave barrel? Is that even bigger? What's an octave? Or are those smaller? Barrel sizes. Let's meme on barrel sizes for a minute. So standard American barrel's 200. Hogshead is 250. Barrique is 300. Puncheon is 500. Butt is 500. Port pipe is 550 to 650, and a drum is 600 to 650. What's an octave? Why is that in my head? Octave barrel size. How big is an octave? Oh, octaves are real fucking small. Octaves are half of a quarter cask. Oh, I'm fucking out to lunch. For some reason, I thought an octave was like really big. I was thinking like octave was like 800, 800 liters. But no, it's the eight is it's an eighth of a sherry butt. Okay. We learned today. It's funny because I picked up that word octave as I knew it was a barrel size, but I didn't pick up how big it was. But now we know. Now we know. So an octave is like an actual. It's closer to an actual quarter barrel. Like if we think of a quarter cask, typically we're talking about a quarter sherry butt, but an octave is like a quarter barrel or an eighth of a sherry butt. All right, we're talking about finish right now. So baking spices, actually some like simple syrup on the finish, oakiness, slight herbal note. Most of these we said before. A lot sweeter on that sip for some reason. It cranked it up for the judging sip, you know. Give me a little bit of the more sweetness in there. I feel like before I said there was like a sweet all sorts note, but I think the licorice is like faded out of it. It's kind of coming across on this particular drink. Simple syrup. Um, it's not that bad. It's like low good. It's like 13. 13 out of 25. All right, so out of 10, we're going to talk about texture. Texture out of 10. Texture is actually pretty good. I should like the texture a little bit. Again, we're talking about 48% alcohol. So, you know, it's not watery. We're not talking about cask strength, though. Um, Not bad. Not bad. I'm down to give it a 6. 6 out of 10. I just want a little more. I want a little more to give it higher than that. I want some of that, like, real silkiness, some of that real oiliness. Um, doesn't quite have that. All right, so at 15 points, let's talk about our experience with this whiskey. Um, the nose is not bad. It's got some interesting notes. I like the notes. I like the fact that the nose notes are a little different, something that you don't really get out of much other stuff. But, I mean, good ABV, reasonable mouthfeel, good punch of flavor, not hunting to find any flavor. The flavor is bold and available. The nose has, quite a few things going on, some good complexity, enjoying the nose. Um, Palate has a horrible strong spice note that it feels unbalanced, is not particularly pleasant. Don't particularly enjoy the palate. I feel like I got to hunt to find other things on the palate. Um, it's not like one of those things where, like, sometimes you get like an overwhelmingly like what we just talked about, like on that rum cask finish Lagavulin, there was that strong molasses note on the palate. And even though it was a strong molasses note and it was like really kind of felt in charge, it was still a pleasant note. It still was like, okay, it's not the worst note to be in charge, molasses. Um, Liquid cinnamon is not the note that I would want to be in charge. That's a supporting actor. I want that to be a supporting actor. I don't want that to be um, the prime flavor. It doesn't come across that pleasant. Um, and the finish is similar. There's got some stuff on it, but it's still overly spicy. It's overspiced. Some oakiness in there. Sweetness is more apparent on the finish, but it's not that pleasant. Um, and typically I try to rate this with how standout or forgettable a whiskey is. And the worst part about this one is it's not bad because it's forgettable. It's bad because it's unfortunate. um, I feel like I'm not. I'm trying to decide how bad it should be. I will not feel guilty about giving it a bad experience score. Give it a 3. 3. 9. 22. 9. 22. 32. 42. 51. Hey, 51's not the worst score, honestly. There's some okay things going on here. 51 out of 100. Um, that still barely qualifies as good. The aroma saves it, honestly. That still barely qualifies as good. It scored better than the Sexton.